Fast life, the fast living. They see the ambition, they know I'm past driven. Look, we are not the same, this is not a game. I've been swerving through the city in and out of lanes.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Ryan, and this is the Thunder Channel on Nootropics and lots of other stuff. Thanks for being with me. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Hit the bell to get notified of everything that this channel is putting out. You're better off getting the YouTube app so that you can get notified directly from YouTube that I'm doing live streams or a new video has come out. A couple of products support this broadcast. I'll explain them at the end of the video, but super quickly, we've got two nootropic stacks that are epic. Number one, the Cortex stack, powerful verbal fluency, mental energy, motivation. And number two, the Torque nootropic stack, stimulation at the highest level for 6 to 8 hours. Links are in the description down below to buy those products. You can buy them at livecortex.com right now. Coupon code Cyber for Cyber Week saves you 35%. That ends tomorrow. Okay, my friends. So I'm going to talk about what it is like to have 1,200 nanograms per deciliter total testosterone. It is, for some people, a number that I would have them aspire to reach, and for other people, I would not wish it upon them ever. Most people think that, having uber high levels of testosterone is better for you, and for some men, that's going to be the case, but for other guys, it's not going to be the case, and it comes with side effects and may not be great. I want to explain my experience with a chemical called human chorionic gonadotropin. It's basically an LH and FSH agonist. Effectively, if you understand how that whole system works, it's really gonadotropin replacement. That's what HCG is for men. It will raise your testosterone. It's more than likely going to raise your estradiol as well, and it's going to give you some pretty interesting effects. So right off the bat, I'll give you my dose and how I administered it, and then we'll talk about what it was like to be at 1,200 nanograms per deciliter total testosterone. So I was dosing 500 international units every other day. And I did this for 2 months straight. At the end of the 2 months, I ran my test numbers. So I had a bunch of effects, positive and negative, which I'm going to get to. Then I ran my labs. My total test was 1215 nanograms per deciliter. I was subcutaneously injecting the HCG into my belly fat with an insulin needle. She makes it super simple and relatively painless to do that, and so it was just easy to do it every other day. So that was my protocol. So let's get into exactly what happened leading up to it and while my numbers were super high. Number one, my libido was insane. And by insane, I mean there were nights that I would go out to have a drink at nighttime, and I would purposely position myself at hotel bars where I thought women would be there that had a room, so I could pick up a chick, go to a room, and do the grown folk. At the gym, it made going to the gym really difficult for me, right? Because, look, there's hot girls at the gym. They're all there doing squats. They're working on their bodies. And, a good bit of them look really, really fucking good. So I'm there at the gym, working out. And, it's hot chick, chicks just everywhere with, great bodies. And they're, in, mere feet proximity to me. And, all my alarms and internal feels everything's going off. I'm just I can't even fucking tame myself. I had to, now I know them all because I had to meet them all then because I just needed to. I needed to approach girls. I needed to ask them what their names were. Just start up conversations oh, you're here early at 6:30 a.m. like me. That's fucking badass, right? Just getting to know chicks because I just couldn't not. I felt so dominantly masculine that I had to communicate with these girls, but also I was so sort of sexually aroused that I just wanted to engage with them anyway. And the weird part about it was I didn't care if they rejected me or wasn't into me asking them questions or talking. I didn't give a shit. For me, I was just I want to talk to this girl. I'm sexually aroused. I'm turned on. I want to at the very least get her name and see who she is. And maybe even peek into if she has a boyfriend. It's just the process of going to the gym and minding my own business when there's hot girls around was very difficult for me. Number two, I had erections pretty much all day. All day erections. There'd be little breaks or whatever, but I mostly was having erections all day and more spontaneous erections on top of my typical baseline. If your test is in a good place, you're going to have spontaneous erections either way, and you'll have random erections throughout the day. But they came out in full force, an excessive quantity. to the point where it just got annoying, and I was like, this is like not good. I mean, there's certain instances in which I can't even be around people. This is fucked up, man. But spontaneous erections and a good degree of erections throughout the day is a good sign of male sexual function health. Obviously, morning erections and nocturnal erections. So again, typically have morning erections and nocturnal erections. That's again a good sign of healthy testosterone and sexual function as a man, but they were significantly more. I mean, erections all night, steel rod fucking morning erections. And yeah, I mean, that's just how it went. Energy wise, I definitely had a lot more energy throughout the course of the day. Like, I was quantifiably getting more stuff done. I had more energy to tackle stuff that otherwise would be either boring to me or my brain really wouldn't want to be into. It didn't matter. Like, if the house needed to be clean, if there was work that needed to be done, if there's a project that I've been putting off, if there were screws loose in my cabinets, you know what I mean, it's like I was fixing everything. I was just energized pretty much the whole day. Sounds amazing, right? Here's where we'll segue into the cons, the negatives that happen when my testosterone got to 1200 nanograms per deciliter, because I almost had too much energy. All right. So much energy that I could not fall asleep. I had nervousness in situations where like I otherwise shouldn't be nervous. Like, I go to these meetings, right? And in the meetings, like, people speak, and whenever I would like get up to speak and say what I had to say, I was nervous leading up to that. And I'm never like that. I never have a titch of nervousness if I'm going to speak publicly or obviously be in front of a camera or say anything to anyone. That's just not who I am. Right. But I was nervous in those situations. My heart was like pounding, like, this is fucking abnormal. I'm not used to this. What is this? It was not cool. I mean, yeah, that's anxiety. Like, so generally I had anxiety that I never normally have, and I don't like that feeling. It's an unsettling, unwell feeling that I just, like, you don't want to feel like that. Acne. I had a lot of acne, and particularly back acne. My back kind of just like blew up in like teenager style acne, where I was like, am I 16 again? Like, what the hell's going on? And apparently when you raise tests at that level, your body almost thinks you're kind of going through puberty again. And so my set point is usually 850, 900 nanograms per deciliter, high end of the reference range, free testosterone, 25 to 30 picograms per milliliter of estradiol. That's where I sit and feel and function awesome, and everything's like great. When I got it up to 1200, I started having a lot of acne, which was not cool, obviously unsightly. The next major side effect, which really kind of threw the whole thing off and made me realize, like, 1200 ultimately is not for me, was terrible sleep, borderline insomnia, right? I would try to go to sleep and I'd be sitting there, employing every known method that I typically use, whether it's meditating, turning on like a fucking guided meditation, female YouTube video, like praying, doing some research, reading a book. Nothing worked, bro. It'd be 1 a.m. and I'm still wide awake and I just can't go to sleep. Even taking high doses of melatonin, which eventually did help me to get to sleep, were like, that's just not as effective as it typically would. I mean, I normally can take 1.53 milligrams melatonin and like half hour later, I am done, son. I am out. In this particular case, it just, I'd have to take 5 milligrams and it would take an hour and a half still in some cases. And then I would finally fall asleep and ultimately get, shitty sleep. And then the last negative that I had when my test got up to 1200 nanograms per deciliter, and by the way, my free test was just above the reference range. It was actually, considered high, too high, because I was aggressive as fuck in traffic, at the store, like with people. Now, look, generally I'm somewhat of an aggressive guy. I move with a purpose. I drive fast. I have a fast car. I like to take back roads so that I'm not kind of, in the convoluted, congested areas of traffic and whatever. Like I'm somewhat impatient with slow people. I definitely am. So, having that extra aggression on top of that made life in traffic and when I'm dealing with people pretty much intolerable. I mean, I felt aggressive in like every life scenario that I was in, like whether I was at the gym or I was talking to somebody, like in every situation, I just felt the need. I had this necessity in me to be aggressive, right? Whether I was, overly assertive or just generally, I don't know, kind of angry. And it was at that point that I realized, yeah, okay, I've got great libido, spontaneous erections. I'm approaching girls more. I feel more energized throughout the day. I'm definitely getting a lot done. My workouts were bitching, like just easier to recover. I built muscle quicker during that time period. But ultimately, the sides weren't worth it. Many men think that they should just shoot their tests like at the highest level possible, and that's just not correct. I mean, for some people, once they get above 1,000, they're going to start to feel bad, you know, and so all the same stuff is going to happen. You're going to have insomnia. You're going to have back acne or back knee. May be nervous and have anxiety where you otherwise do not, you know, have anxiety. You may be overly aggressive in certain situations in your life, with your wife, with your girlfriend, with your kids, with whoever, coworkers or something. I mean, you get yourself in a bad situation if you're in that state. And then again, generally, it was like impossible to sleep well, which for me is the cornerstone of my energy, right? I mean, I'm always doing a lot of things to make sure energy is peak, but if I'm not sleeping well, I mean, like that is a huge problem. That is what it feels like for me to have uber high testosterone, right? You know, on the sexual side and on the strength side and on the energy side, everything is like as maxed out as possible, which is super interesting and potentially useful for certain applications. But, you know, when you've got anxiety, you can't sleep, you're aggressive as fuck, you know, you have acne, you have nervousness in situations where, like, you know, you otherwise wouldn't be, then yeah, I mean, that's the point at which you've got to dial it down. What's the moral of the story? I don't know. HCG is a very, very powerful injectable chemical. You know, that would have to be something you'd have to get through a script. It's usually used for men that are on TRT to preserve fertility, because again, it's an LH and FSH agonist. It's going to bind right to the Sertoli cells and the Leydig cells in the testicles, act as your own luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone to produce sperm and testosterone. And one more thing I wanted to mention, you know, because I'm sure folks that are into this sort of stuff are like, oh, those sides were estrogen. Definitely not, because my E2 was being controlled the entire time, right? I was controlling it with DIM. I was eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables. I even had to dose a anastrozole, which is an actual aromatase inhibitor, to keep the E2 in range for me, because I understand what my E2 needs to be, and when it goes above that, I've got other sides like itchy nipples and weird things that come about when you have high estrogen. So I kept my E2 between 25 and 30 picograms per milliliter. I was very, very careful about that. So those sides that I was having were not due to estrogen. They were actually due to too high testosterone. You know, too high levels of testosterone can give you side effects. And in the TRT community and the testosterone community in general, that's sort of a debate. People think like those sides that I mentioned are estradiol. And usually they're not, because you can get the estradiol way down. If the test is still the same number, you're going to have the same sides. Practical applications would something like this, you know, be useful for? Well, I mean, if you want to build a lot of muscle, if you want to have like a bitchin' 2 months of, you know, of your sex life with your partner, then yeah, I mean, raising your testosterone that high, you know, so long as you're controlling estrogen, could be a good application. Again, if you want to have like a lot of energy for the gym, be able to build muscle, generally get a lot done throughout the day, and just be like I was a maniac. I was an absolute beast. I'm a beast anyway, but when my test gets to 1200, and like I'm a super beast. So again, I mean, that might be useful for you. You've got to sort of determine, you know, where it's like it's trade-off either way. You know, do you want that extra power, the extra libido, the extra energy, the extra aggressiveness, the extra productivity therefore, and you can tolerate the lack of sleep and some of the other side effects for a brief period to get something done, you know, you'd have to decide for yourself. The major overarching point is, you know, you don't necessarily want to raise your testosterone as high as it can go. There's a lot of people out there these days saying like, oh, we used to have the upper limit of the reference range on total test used to be higher. And yeah, maybe that's true, that it used to be 1200, 1300, 1500 nanograms per deciliter, whereas now, depending on which reference range you're looking at, it's between 700 and 950 or something. But that does not mean that you're going to operate, you know, better at high levels of tests. Most men only make between, I think it's 6 and 10 milligrams of testosterone a day. I mean, so over a 7-day period, that's 70 milligrams a week, right? You know, that's all that normal men typically, you know, make. Would I do this again? I don't know. Yeah, you know, I think the next time that I want to very aggressively, outside of natural supplements and, you know, like lifestyle stuff, try to achieve, you know, high levels of testosterone, I would just go on TRT. Like I was talking about yesterday in my live stream, and I'm going on 40 here in a bit. And yeah, at some point I'm going to want to experiment with TRT. Will I stay on it? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to see if there's sides or how I'm able to manipulate the protocol myself, etc. But yeah, I probably wouldn't go on HCG again. And again, if I wasn't controlling estradiol, I can almost guarantee that my estradiol would have risen past a point that I'm comfortable with. And that's based off of working with a lot of men dialing their TRT protocols in, and separately just helping them to raise testosterone. Estradiol goes up simultaneously with it, and that's because of the aromatization of testosterone to estrogen. I'd say if I were to, aside from actual injectable testosterone, run another protocol of a chemical that will definitely raise test, I would take Clomid. I've taken that before, and Clomid is like it's not an LH and FSH agonist. It's not really replacement gonadotropin. It's just forcing you to make your own gonadotropins at excessive quantity. So it's full on endogenous test that doesn't leave you in a place after where you need a PCT, post-cycle therapy, which you would use Clomid for. If you're using HCG and you're a guy to raise your test, once you stop taking it, you may be shut down in terms of your own gonadotropin production. In fact, your LH and FSH is almost guaranteed to go down on blood work. So, I'd probably just take Clomid if I was going to do it again. But again, the next time that I'm going to sort of manipulate testosterone at the chemical level, aside from, doing it naturally, it's probably just going to be TRT. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope that's been useful. I hope I've given you some good bits of information there. And, really the overarching point, which is like, yeah, you want to raise your testosterone pretty high as a guy, definitely. But if it gets too high, it's going to fucking come with sides, and they are not fun. Appreciate you guys being with me. Remember, Cyber Week specials are ending tomorrow. Okay, so for the Cortex Nootropics Stack, which is still 35% off using the coupon code CYBER, you can still get a bottle uber cheap of the most powerful mental energy, motivation, verbal fluency nootropic stack. I mean, if you want to be able to synthesize words a lot easier from the brain, output them better, and actually sound like you know what you're talking about, people think you're confident, they're like, oh, I trust this guy. Verbal fluency is a sign of confidence. It's a sign of knowing what you're talking about. Cortex makes that a lot easier and gives you motivated dopamine energy. The link is in the description down below, so you can literally buy a bottle now. Go click it, go use the coupon code CYBER, and have at it. Our other nootropic stack, exceptionally long half-life, 6 to 8 hour window of stimulation, mental energy, motivation, focus, my friends, the will to do work. Torque. The Torque Nootropic Stack is the most purchased nootropic stack on the internet. We're just selling so much product and blowing through inventory. It just caught fire out there since it launched back in July. Very powerful nootropic stack, and you can buy it at livecortex.com right now. You can save 35% if you use the coupon code CYBER for Cyber Week. You must do it. Link is down below in the description. Click through, go buy a bottle, punch in the coupon code CYBER at the end and checkout, and you will save 35% right now. If you need my help, whether it's nootropics, it's testosterone, dialing in your TRT protocol, or anything else that has to do with energy and brain performance optimization, that is what I do. From a cognitive perspective, I'm the world's foremost expert in getting people to function incredibly, particularly using nootropics, but not exclusively using nootropics. Hire me at livecortex.com in the consultations tab with Ryan on the menu, and let's get something going. Pleasure hanging out with you guys. Thank you so much for being with me. It's been fun chatting with you, and I will talk to you next time.